How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. Gabe, your host here. We have a very special guest with us today, so grab your pen and paper and prepare for some wisdom bombs coming your way. Before we get started, I do want to say that this is a free course, and we do really enjoy doing this. So the easiest way for you to support us, if you like this show, is to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. That's the easiest way, and we really appreciate it. Secondly, we're an active investing company. We market nationally for properties. So if you want to join our buyers list, become a partner in a program, or if you want to bring us a deal for a single family, multifamily, or mobile home and RV parks, go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to get in contact with one of our partners. Finally, we developed a course for everybody wanting to get involved in single family, multifamily, and mobile home and RV parks. So if you want to do that, if you want to learn how to invest in those asset classes, go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com and check out our course there. That's all I have to say for now. So I hope you guys enjoy the show, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side. All right, we are live. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I always start out every episode. I like to hear from the guests. Tell us where you're from and how you got started in real estate in the first place.
Sure. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I got started in real estate because I absolutely hated being lied to about corporate America. Turns out that work hard in school, you'll go to a good college, and then you'll graduate from a good college, and then you'll have a good job, and then you work really hard at that good job, and then they promote you, and then you retire on the beach somewhere was a lie. Turns out what that is stress yourself out during high school, and then stress yourself out some more during college, and then stress yourself out some more while you're getting your master's degree, and then stress yourself out at a job that you utterly hate, and then look at your bank account and go, oh my gosh, I have more student loan debt than cash. Yeah, that was awful. And long story short, I was like, I need to start my own business. What is it going to be in? And so I looked at over 100 businesses and eventually settled on real estate, and more specifically mobile home parks. So that's what I do.
Absolutely. That is a story that I relate to very well. So
yeah,
you went through the whole school thing. You got kind of disenfranchised or disillusioned, I suppose, and you jumped into real estate after that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and I was dumb enough to double down on school. Hey, maybe one round of it wasn't enough. Let's go back.
The master's degree.
Yes.
I did half of that. I went into the master's program and then I bounced after that. I was like, can't do it. I just can't do it. Awesome. Yeah. I love it. Well, so awesome. So tell us where, you mentioned you're in mobile home parks right now, which is, I'm really excited about because this is what me and my partners focus on as well. So we're going to jump into that in a second. Sure. But first, tell us a little bit about your group and what you guys do today.
Yeah, so we have been at it for 5 years. It's myself and my business partner, Ian Tudor, and we've purchased 14 mobile home parks over the last 5 years. It's roughly 1,400 pads. We've sold out of a few so we could have our own capital and not have to rely on raising a fund and worry about a pref structure or yada, yada, yada. And so we basically have one of our friends, it's 3 of us, and that's it. And it's wonderful because I literally work from home. And we've got 3 under contract right now. We've bought 2 in the middle of a pandemic. So we bought 4 last year. Yeah, I mean, we're growing. And again, I think the most fun part about what I do is I don't have to worry about investors. And I don't have that pressure of having to allocate capital. And basically my strategy is buy really rough stuff. I mean, I definitely buy nicer stuff too, but my ideal property is something that I buy for absolute pennies on the dollar that just needs a big, major overhaul, and then turn over the bad tenants, bring in some good tenants, dump capital into it, and make it a really nice property and refinance it and move on. And I've got to say, there is nothing, Gabe, or not many things that make me happier than looking at pictures of properties I buy before and after, because let me tell you something, if you weren't paying attention to the news, there's an affordable housing crisis in this country, and politicians would love to spew the rhetoric about it and love to also not do anything about it. And to roll into a property where you have drugs and crime or just mass vacancy and issues with infrastructure and homes and yada, 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 and to be able to go in and pretty it up, make it safe, make it clean, bring in people who really deserve it. That is a wonderful thing to spend my time doing, is to help people find good, affordable housing. And not only that, we started a partial college scholarship for the kiddos in our communities. We finally wrote our first check for that this year, which was really exciting. We also partner with Paylease, so we can help our residents build their credit while they pay their rent. And we do a ton of other things. Right now, we're working with a lunch program, since kids aren't in schools right now. I want to help preserve and enhance affordable housing and help my residents at the same time. So it is just an absolute, it checks every box. I mean, we make good money, we have a lot of fun, and we help people. I'm absolutely passionate about what I do.
I love it. I love it. I mean, you kind of resonates with me, everything that you just said. That kind of leads me into the first question that I wanted to ask is,
Sure.
You've touched on it a little bit, but why, I mean, there's real estate is a huge field. There's so many different asset classes to jump into. Why did you decide to jump into mobile home parks? Do you guys do RV parks as well, or is it just mobile home?
I have had about 50 plus or minus RV pads out of my 1,400. So it's sprinkled in there. I mean, it's kind of like park on homes, and you can't avoid them.
Yeah.
So we've got like a cherry on top RV, but for the most part, we're mobile home park guys.
Gotcha. So kind of why did you decide on that asset class? What kind of drew you to it?
Sure. Well, first off, it was literally years of introspection and asking myself some really brutal questions about who I was, where I was at, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And that sucked a lot, having to be really honest with about who I am and what I'm not. And after I allowed my ego to just take that absolute bloodbath of a beating, I had, like kind of like a come to Jesus moment about who I am and where I could go and what I could do. And through that whole process of self-discovery, I realized real estate is something I was really passionate about. And then it was just a question of what in real estate. And I just kind of realized, because I can't remember which book it was that I was reading, but the author basically argued you should think back to discover who you are. You should think back to what you did as a kid without anybody having to ask you to do it. And for me, that was tutoring underprivileged kids. And I found myself doing that in adulthood too. Even again, no one asked me to do that. It was just something I was naturally inclined to go and do. And so while I was thinking about, okay, I definitely want to do real estate, and I definitely enjoy educating kids that didn't have the advantages I had growing up, I went, it's got to be affordable housing. So then you zoom into affordable housing, and then you find mobile home parks. And I'm a former car salesman, and mobile homes are very similar to cars in a lot of regards. They both have titles. You have to have a license to sell them. I mean, there's so many similarities that it fit my skill set that I had already developed in my 20s. It fit my passions, my skill sets. I mean, it was just a direct bullseye hit. And I am proud to say, this is what I am meant to do. This is who I am supposed to be when I grow up.
Awesome. Well, hey man, I'm glad you found your path. It sounds like you guys are really doing well on it.
Nice.
So I want to jump a little bit further into, the nuts and bolts of your business, how you run it.
Sure.
So, real estate, it all starts, it's a continuum. You buy it, you flip it, or you fix it up, you stabilize it, but it starts with finding the property. So kind of tell us, how do you guys go about finding your deals? And what's the most effective way you've found to do that?
Yeah, we do it all. We've done mailers, we do cold calls, we do outreach to brokers, we network, check LoopNet. We do everything, but the truth of the matter is I'm able to find deals in front of my face because I can underwrite better, and I can underwrite better because I'm on my properties. And it really bugs me when people want to be armchair property owners. I taught myself Spanish.
Oh,
I
wow.
literally can speak Spanish now because I realized that would give me a competitive advantage. So I spend time talking to my residents. I even spend 14 months every other week living in one of my communities so I could consume the product that I was selling to my residents. And from being on the front lines, from not being afraid to have my life threatened, which I talk about in my podcast, to literally like 2 weeks ago, we had a racist stripper say she was going to burn her trailer down. Like I, I could talk for hours about ridiculous things that I've seen, but through that process of being my own operator, it's allowed me to get started with literally negative money. I mean, I had more student loan debt than I had cash. So I realized I had to be a property manager to be able to go full time. And through that process, I got very efficient at operating. And because I got really efficient operating, that made me a really efficient underwriter. And there are several deals in my portfolio that I could point to and go, yep, everyone knew about that and talked about that, and no one wanted to buy that. And I bought it, and now it's worth 2-3 times what I paid for it, because I now have the skill to like pop the hood, so to speak, and have a look under the engine and be like, oh, this is mostly cosmetic stuff. Or, you know what, if I replace the transmission, this thing will last, X amount of time more. And I can now see value where others can't, because I was willing to do what others weren't willing to do.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to follow that track a little bit further.
Sure.
You said you guys, you bring in the leads, cold calling, mailing, et cetera, et cetera. So basically the standard things you kind of assume. Do you guys use digital marketing at all, or is it just,
The funny thing is, in this space, everyone likes to talk about how there's a lot of mom and pops, and then very few people I know actually like to pick up the phone. And the truth is, when the phone is probably the best way to get a mom and pop to, and it's more than just that. Calling someone up and saying, hey, are you interested in selling your park? No. Okay, bye. Like that. No, I mean, you need to dump years into it. I have a property under contract right now and a massive MSA that took me 3 years to get under contract.
wow, that's
3
awesome.
years.
Yeah.
So that is how long it can take to get someone to your price and your terms. And the thing of it is, when people are they're stuck in their job and they're using real estate as like a pipe dream escape from, because they hate their boss or they want to go, rush and get quick, easy money. The truth of the matter is, the great deals out there where everybody wins, the seller, us, the tenants, everybody wins, are not ones you just jump on mobilehomeparkstore.com and I'll buy a 10 cap. No, it's ones that you grind out for years. It's one that you overcome objections. You pump someone full of value for years and don't expect anything in return. It is not a complicated business. It is a long, drawn out, block and tackle type business. Nothing fancy. Just you got to go and do what's not sexy, what takes a long time. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. Hey, Ryan's closed 2 deals so far this year. He's got 3 under contract. Great. Hooray. That took me 5 years. Okay. My first year, I bought nothing. My second year, I bought 1. So
Wow.
It takes a long time.
So kind of going, I wanted to go into underwriting, but I'm going to ask one more question on this,
Sure.
on this line here. So you just said your first year you didn't buy anything. That's often common with people, just getting started in real estate, who want to, they're really excited, but they just can't pull the trigger, or they just don't know how, or they don't have the capital. So it sounds like you started from a negative balance sheet in your own bank account, which is,
Right.
that's not an advantage to you as an investor for sure. So how did you overcome that negative balance? How did you get your first park?
OPM, other people's money.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you have to. And basically what I realize is there's 3 legs to any deal. I'll credit my friend Andrew Keel for bringing that up to me. Basically, every deal has 3 aspects. You have to have a willing seller, right? So someone who goes, all right, I'll sign over the deed, it's yours. But that person is going to want money. So be it debt or equity or a combination of both, you have to bring this person money. And then the third kind of leg of this 3-legged table is the operations. And like my friend Coleman Bubis says, everybody likes making the babies. No one likes raising the babies. And what I mean by that is the operations is really the hardest and most important part of those three, because you can brag all you want that you syndicated a bunch of money and closed a deal, but the truth of the matter is someone's got to be there to operate it.
Yep.
And it's not really value add unless you pull off the business plan and successfully operate. And so I see a lot of people on LinkedIn and on their, in the market talking about how many assets they have under management or how they close this big deal. And then you ask, like, have you ever been to your property? Have you ever talked to your residents? What contractors do you know personally? Like when I went to this deal I was talking about that I had under contract for 3 years, I went and I had 3 people I hadn't seen in years drop everything they were doing to come and see me. Think about that. Do you know why that is? It's because I put the time face to face in with these people, and they all wanted to see pictures of my son and yada, yada, yada. So it's like, again, like if your listeners get anything out of me, I really hope that there are 2 things. Number one, you go, oh my gosh, this is way harder than I ever imagined. And number 2, then they get excited. Oh my gosh, it's way harder, which means if I really want to kick butt here, there's not going to be a lot of competition because most people like easy, not hard.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's funny because I often thought that when I was first getting into real estate, I was like, man, why? There's just so much competition out there. Of course, there's no chance I can't get a good deal. But
yeah.
But the truth of the matter is it's much harder than people think to find deals, to stabilize deals. And so the competition isn't as fierce as you perceive it to be, just because you're willing to put in more effort than other people are to really create value in the deals
Correct.
that you work. So,
and time, don't forget that too. Effort and time.
Absolutely. So I want to move on to underwriting. Sure. We all know that when you buy any asset, you basically make the money when you purchase. To an extent, I don't truly believe in that 100%. A lot of it comes from operating, but it is true that when you buy the property, you can't buy it at a loss, or else it's just not going to be a great asset for your portfolio. So that comes to underwriting. Underwriting is one of the most important parts of purchasing the property. How do you go about underwriting your mobile home parks? What are the things that you look for that other people don't?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, there's several directions we could go with this. But first and foremost, the number one thing that I don't hear enough people talk about is CapEx, because the silent killer of mobile home parks is CapEx. I mean, we made a mistake on our second property, and I talk about it in my podcast, that cost us $150,000.
Wow.
And we bought that property for $500,000. So, I mean, you're talking a massive part, like literally 30% of the purchase price we had to turn around and dump right back into it in very short order, because we just didn't check the water bills. And we didn't think that the gallons per household was anything to be concerned about. And the truth was, we were literally losing money to the ground. It was like over $20,000 a year.
You had a leak
to the ground that was impossible to find. It took us years to find it. And knock on wood, our water bills for the last 9 months have been completely normal. So yeah, I mean, first and foremost, CapEx. For this property I was mentioning earlier that took me 3 years to get, when Ian and I went to it, I literally went to every single lot and documented septic, water lines, and electrical, because it's going to kill you. And another big thing is trees. Trees love to fall, and they love to fall at times you don't want them to fall, and they love to fall on things you don't want them to fall on. And so, yeah, I mean, the sexy part of this business is to talk about how you can buy something for a 6 cap, slap leverage on it, and you hit your 8 pref with a nice margin. And then you raise rents on top of that, and you're hitting, 10 plus cash on cash returns. And where else are you going to do that? Which is really exciting, right? They trade for a little bit higher on a basis point percentage than apartments. And then even better than that, when you're buying stuff in tertiary markets or smaller or hairier stuff, you can get 8 caps and higher, right? So in other words, whereas in apartments, you usually can't pull that off. So in other words, the more quality mobile home parks, they basically they trade and perform very similarly to high-end apartments. But then when you get to the littler stuff, you can really start hitting some nice juicy returns. But again, it all comes back to there's a lot of risk with that. And the biggest risk is CapEx, because if you buy a little 40 lot park and you get a 10 cap and then you slap leverage on it and there's seller carry, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then 6 months down the road, you're dumping $150,000 into it. It changes things. So in other words, for me, I know that's, we can talk anything you want to talk about. If you want to jump into what I look for, IRRs, equity multipliers, whatever, yada, 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 that's important. And we can talk about that. But to me, if you're really, really interested in mobile home parks, the number one thing no one is talking about and no one is really diligent enough around is understanding your infrastructure, because it will absolutely crush you if you're not careful.
Awesome. I love that you said that, because we're actually buying a park in George, Washington right now. And there's a single family. Well, there's a sizable amount of CapEx that we're considering putting into the park. And on paper, if you were to buy this park and not consider CapEx, it looks just stellar, just better than you can imagine. But after CapEx, it's a normal purchase. But had we not considered that CapEx, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. So I want to go a little bit further into that. Before I do, though, I just want you to mention, you have mentioned that you run your own podcast. For those listening and who want to learn a little bit more about your podcast and about mobile home parks, what is the podcast name and how can they find it?
MHP IRL, which stands for Mobile Home Parks in Real Life. And I spare no details. I will tell you how to do everything in very specific detail. I realized that when I started off, the only podcasts out there were hyping up the industry. Oh, wow, like you don't have to fix toilets and roofs, and it's a coupon clipper, and you buy them for 10 caps, and then you're making 20% cash on cash returns. And I realized that it sold me on the industry only for me to get started in the industry and go, oh my gosh, this is absolutely not at all what they are talking about. What happens when someone gets evicted and they own their own home and they disappear in the middle of the night with the title? That's going to kill you. What about, so in other words, how do you evict a tenant-owned home? What about infill? Okay, well, I have a home that I moved in February. It's now July, and the county will still not approve even though everything is done, sewer, everything, the skirting, it is done. It is ready to go. I have a buyer lined up. We are done. And I think the reason why they're not approving it is because they don't like where I put the numbers of the address on the home, and then they're not telling me on purpose. These are which is ridiculous. But that's dealing with the counties. And then here's another really important thing that almost no one I have ever heard says this. If you are infilling a community, the like selling point of mobile home parks is you have highly sticky tenants that are also highly risky tenants because they're low income, low credit, or no credit, or basically no income. And you're going to expect these people to come en masse who have decent credit, decent income, no vicious animals. It's really hard, and to stick and not move and follow your rules. It is really, really, really hard. You're taking in high risk tenants for like $300 a month. No one is saying this. And it was so enraging to me. And I found myself complaining about how basically fundraisers were going out and trying to influx the market with hype so they could take investment dollars, and just omitting really key details. And if you know anything about me, it's that I don't like to complain and then not do something. So I'm not selling anything. I'm not raising any money. I am literally just a dude who's angry, and I'm going to go out and help good people who don't want to be slumlords have the tools necessary to be successful. So that's a long sale on my podcast. I spare no details. If you want to buy a mobile home park and you want to know how it really is and how to actually operate it, oh my God, everything I know is right there, and it's all free.
I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to have to check it out myself. So if anybody listening, watching, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about mobile home parks, the operations, the acquisitions, check out MHP IRL. It's Ryan's podcast. You'll get more of this goodness that he's sharing right here on our show. Moving on, though. So we were just talking about underwriting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, CapEx is a huge thing when you're talking about underwriting. And you also mentioned sewer, electrical, and water are the big things to be looking at. What else? What other things do you look at when you're doing your underwriting that really have an effect on the future value of the property?
Right. So then don't forget trees. Trees are killers too.
Trees.
And to me, what I'm doing underwriting first and foremost is I like to do a quick back of the napkin math. I like to see what I think best case scenario it's going to be in 3 to 5 years and what it is performing today. And then I look at that difference and I go, is that worth it?
Yeah. Do you
And
guys, on that note, do you guys go into it? Say there's maybe a half an acre that's empty on the lot. Do you go into it looking to add new pads to your park, or is it always just as is?
no, if it's not good enough without me dumping a bunch of capital into it, I'm not interested.
Gotcha.
To me, it's just, I know a lot of people are excited to develop out pads and bring in new stuff. And a gentleman that owns a community literally adjacent to mine, it's like 18 lots next to my 68 lot community, and he's spent possibly as much as I have on mine for a fraction of his. And I think he's in a spot where he's probably not ever going to sell it because he's going to need to break even. He's going to need to exit for like 40,000 a pad.
Oh
And you're
wow.
not going to get that on 18 lots. I mean, I will credit him. He makes my community look great because he's also made it look pretty like mine,
Yep.
which is great. But for 18 lots, I mean, to spend close to as much as you bought the thing for, his basis is out of control now. And so in other words, and that's all because he had to cut down all sorts of trees and brush and then build out pipes and infrastructure and concrete pads. And then he spent way too much on bringing in homes that were used, because I went through it with him, and I sat back and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, but you know, that's his strategy. And I love that, I can be wrong and someone can challenge me. But to me, I'm not really interested in buying something to then go and dump a bunch of capital into, because you got to think about it like this. When I move even a used home in, so I'll give you a good, for example, the one I was talking about earlier that I brought in February. And yeah, COVID has delayed it. My basis on that is about $30,000. I only bought it for five. Think about that. It was in good shape. I mean, this is an
Wow.
early 90s massive home. We had to replace the roof. We had to do all sorts of stuff on the inside. We had to build out we had to redo the sewer and water connections and completely redo the electrical connections outside of the home, and yada, yada, yada. We're at about a basis of $30,000. We don't have someone who's going to come and give us $30,000 cash and not want to rip the home from the community, right? So in other words, I'm going to need to get that money back slowly and over time. And even if I get it back in an aggressive, say, 3 years, I would rather have that $30,000 right now than in 3 years, because right now I can buy more properties with that $30,000. So to me, and that's one home. Imagine if I'm bringing in 10, that's 300 grand. If I'm moving in 100, that's $3 million. Is it worth that to make a decent return, or buy multiple properties? And to me, dumping in the capital to do stuff like that is really inefficient. So that's kind of how I think through that. If the homes are there, even if they're atrocious and it's going to be difficult to get the titles and there's a rough tenant base and it's all park on home or whatever, whatever, whatever. If the homes are there and I don't have to dump money into building out new infrastructure, I'm excited.
Makes sense. Yeah, that it makes a lot more sense, and it's surprising how much capex it takes to put a pad in. I thought
Yeah.
when we had first looked into it, I thought it was going to be maybe $5,000.
Mm-mm.
It's not. For those of you,
It's really expensive.
go quote it. So I'm glad you brought that up. You also mentioned something that I want to jump into. You mentioned park-owned homes.
Yep.
So whenever somebody looks at, if people listening, watching haven't gone into mobile home space yet, you generally, when you look at a park, they're either going to be majority owned by the tenant, so park owned, or tenant owned homes, or they will be owned by the park, so park owned homes, POH, TOH. So for your park-owned homes, or sorry, your tenant-owned homes, what do you do when you're looking at the park? How do you go about selling those homes? Do you keep them? Do you keep the tenant-owned homes, or sorry, park-owned homes? Sorry, I'm screwing this up here.
No, you're good.
Park-owned homes. Do you keep those, or do you sell them to the tenants?
It depends. It's market dependent. So I'll give you a good, for example, my Asheville community, my lot rent's at 315, and I can rent my park owned homes for over 1,000.
Wow!
So
Wow!
yeah, and I have seemingly unlimited demand for it, which is
Huh?
insane. So when you look at Asheville, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a delta of $700. Can there really be $700 worth of repairs a month? And I've had that property for about 3.5 years now, and the answer is unequivocally no. It just doesn't make sense to sell it. And better than that, most of those tenants are original tenants.
Oh,
So they're
wow!
extremely sticky, which
Yeah.
is insane to me. So you compare that with, for example, Spartanburg, South Carolina, which we were talking about, your Blacksburg community. Rents there are just not that high. And my lot rent's pretty darn similar. I'm at 295 there. So it's about a $20 difference. And rents there are like $600. Can someone do $300 worth of damage a month? Oh yeah. If I have to replace an HVAC or a roof or something like that, forget it. And if you have turnover on top of that, and then you have to dump several $1,000s into fixing it, oh my gosh, it's a big difference. So in other words, the way you got to look at this is it's very market dependent. But from a 30,000 foot view, most people don't like park owned homes, and I'll tell you why. Because you have to worry about a roof going out or an HVAC going out, and heavy tenant turnover. But I like them, and I like them more than just that. Most people don't, and that makes me different, which gives me an advantage. I like them because I have control and because it's hard. High risk, high reward. That's exactly what they are. You've got to have a license to sell more than a handful a year, depending on your state. But once you get your license, which we have, it took us like 6 months, which in
Oh,
South
wow!
Carolina, which was a disaster, but we got it and we just renewed it,
Congratulations.
which was awesome. So, you got to get licensed, but as soon as you're licensed, then you have options. You have options. You can keep renting it out if you have a good tenant. So for example, I got rid of all my Section 8 because I utterly hate Section 8. It's also very market dependent, but I have one gentleman who is just an absolute dream. And so I'm keeping that as a park owned home. He's partial Section 8 and he pays the rest and he helps the community. He's been there for like 30 years, doesn't want to own it. Hey, no objections to me. I'm going to keep it. Then I have the option to rent to own it or lease option it, depending on your state. And the cool thing about that is you can get those elevated gross revenues coming in and not have to fix anything and have someone who's ecstatic because they have no credit or bad credit and you're the bank for them. And it's great because the title is in your name. So if they default, guess who's getting that back? You have control. And then what you can do too is if you move in a home and you don't want to spend $30,000 like I did to fix up this home, you can have someone you've built a relationship out over the years literally do all of that for you. I have several people that I know that don't speak a word of English. They're Hispanic, they're full citizens and everything. And because I speak my broken Spanish, I've developed relationships with folks for years who I'll buy something for $5,000 and move it. And then they'll buy it from me for $5,000. I'll take a $2,000 plus or minus dollar loss, but then they'll start paying me my lot rent immediately. Then they'll dump $20,000 into it, keep it as a rental. They win. The people who are living there renting from them win. And I win because I don't have to spend $30,000. I get my lot rent now. So there are a bunch of different clever ways you can go about it, but I love park on homes because I am on my properties being my own property manager, asset manager, whatever you call it. And now that I have employees, now I can really start to scale my business seriously because I have these skills. So to me, I want what's tough. I want what's high risk, high reward. For someone getting into it, I would definitely recommend you go more tenant owned home because it's less to have to worry about, but it's also less reward. So that's kind of how I think through that.
I like it, and that actually kind of piggybacks into the next question that I was going to ask. Say you do buy a park that has a bunch of park-owned homes. I'm getting those two screwed up in my mind. Do you repair, replace, or destroy?
Completely depends on the home.
Yep.
So I I've sold as is, handyman specials. Those are high risk, high reward. You really have to know who you're selling it to. I actually talk about this on my YouTube channel and my podcast. Like you really, if you're doing a handyman special and you're going to sell something for like $500, that's atrocious. You really need someone who has the experience, the time, and the money. And if any of those three are missing, you are toast. You have someone that lacks experience, they're going to make that home even worse. You have someone who doesn't have the time, you're going to have a Miami. And what I mean by Miami, if you ever go to Miami, it feels like a really nice ghost town because a bunch of foreign money owns all these condos and no one's in them. Right. So
Really
like,
interesting.
I've had that. Ian and I joke about that. We've had communities before where we sell off a bunch of handyman specials, and we made the mistake of selling it to people who have money, who can invest in them, have the experience, who know what they're doing, but they're really good at what they do. So they don't have time. And all of a sudden you have all this lot rent coming in and you have these homes that are just vacant.
Yeah.
And it's a really eerie feeling. And so you have to be able to find someone who meets those three things. And then obviously follows your rules and yada, yada, yada. So it's really, really hard to do that, but that's an option you have. Now, the other thing you can do, like you mentioned, is literally fix it and flip it. And again, the issue with fixing and flipping is most people aren't going to pay you cash because they have no credit or bad credit or not much income or not much cash. That's why they need affordable housing, because they don't have money or credit or both. So you go spend $10, $15, $20,000 rehabbing something, and then you rent, own it, lease option it, sell or carry it, whatever, yada yada yada. You don't get that money back for several years, and they may move out, and then you got to do the whole process all over again. So that's also pretty risky. But I've done it plenty of times and it works. Or just replace it. And I've had to do that before too. I've got a property I just bought earlier, like literally about 30 days ago, where the home's burned down. So I'm going to have to remove that, replace that with something newer, nicer, and improve the quality of the community. Hooray. But again, it's the same spot. I'm going to have to dump 30,000 plus to get it there, get it fixed up. I mean, it's, again, another question of where's my capital best spent? And I'm a firm believer that your capital is best spent buying properties, not bringing in new homes.
I couldn't agree more. I like that you ended on that one. Ryan, unfortunately, you've given us so much awesome wisdom so
Thank
far.
you.
Unfortunately, we are towards the end of the show. I try to keep it around 30 minutes, but I'm less successful. Definitely not successful in this period. But I have a few closing questions that I want to ask. Something that I ask everybody that comes on the show. We all know that real estate, it's a roller coaster. You got your ups, you got your downs. And we all get to experience both of them. So take us to one of the down periods. You're at the top right now. Take us to where the trough of your life, of your real estate career, and tell us the number one lesson that you took from that experience.
I could talk for hours about this, but I already mentioned the $150,000 kick in the face that I got. That was on my second property. Oof. And we were doing that with our third leg of our Archimedes Group, and I picked the right JV partner because we called him up, we explained the situation, he didn't flinch, he was like, okay, where do I wire the money, let's get it done. So that was really scary because I had no money. I invested all the money I made on my first deal and my second one pretty much, and I had like no money left over, and it was really, really scary, and I had no deals under contract and nothing working, and I felt like I was getting absolutely nowhere, which is debilitating. Yep. And on top of that, I have to ask someone for a whole bunch of money. So that was definitely a low point.
Gotcha. What was the lesson you learned from that one?
Partner with the right people, because if he was not a total rock star, even if he was like an average or even above average investor, I probably would have had my face chewed off. And so that would have made a bad situation even worse. And I have recourse debt on that deal. So if we had gone belly up, all of us would have had it could have possibly gone bankrupt. So recourse debt is a real thing, and it's really scary when things don't go right. But if you partner with the right people, you can be adults and get through really tough situations. So absolutely partner with the right people.
Absolutely. Finding good partners is, it's gold in this industry, in any industry, to be honest. But you really
Yeah.
got to make sure that you're in bed with the right people, because partnerships are almost like a marriage. You're with each other for the long haul. You got to be able to trust the other person. So I love that you said that, and I love that you did find the right person in that situation. So moving on, you've been in this for 5 years. You've had your ups, you've had your downs. But you are doing really well right now, so congratulations.
Thanks.
If you were to go back to the Ryan who started 5 years ago, no experience, didn't really know what he was getting into, and give that Ryan one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't stop what you're doing. I mean, what I did worked. Let me change it. Do more of what you're doing. Maybe it'll go a little bit faster. I mean, honestly, I focus my time on learning, networking, self-assessing, understanding who I am, and preparing to sacrifice, because I quit a lucrative job to literally move into a mobile home. And I lived in that mobile home, like I said, every other week for 14 months, making less than half of what I was making and having no 401k, no benefits. I was hours away from my family and my friends. It was really tough and really scary. And it was all with recourse debt over my head. And it was the happiest I have ever been in my life. And that honeymoon phase has not worn off, because I found what I'm meant to be doing. So if I was to talk to myself 5 years ago, I would say, thank you. You've made the right choice. Just keep doing it. Do it harder.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Do not give up. And I would like to echo that myself. Just don't give up. When you jump onto a new path, it always feels shaky. It always feels like it's not, it doesn't have solid ground under you. Just keep moving forward. You're going to make it if you just keep your eye on the prize and keep focused. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you pulled through that one. So we are at the end of the show here, Ryan. If we all need to receive things, you've given us a lot in this episode. Yeah. So kind of, if somebody were to bring you something, what would you want to receive?
So I'm a giver. I don't want to receive anything. But if I, gun to my head, pick something, here's what I want. I want to help you. I want to help you go out and be more successful. One of the best things that I get in return is when someone calls or texts or emails and says, hey, I took your advice and it worked. And I'm so thankful. Like, that gratitude coming back to me is worth everything. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not selling anything. I'm not raising any money. I just really enjoy helping people. And if you are listening to this and you realize, hey, this dude is raising money on his podcast, so maybe he's a little biased. I really, truly want to start this mobile home business or any real estate business, and I just need someone to give me some real talk. Like, what is it really going to take? That's me. And I don't need anything from you. Just drop me a line when it works. Like, that's it. Go out and help people. I really want to be an inspiration for others to chase their own dreams, to get out of jobs that they feel stuck in, and to go out and make the world a better place because they were there. And if you don't give me anything, I don't care. I'm so happy to help you.
I love it. Well, thank you for that, Ryan. If somebody did want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Easiest thing to do is LinkedIn. Like, my favorite rapper, Tupac, says, I ain't hard to find. Literally, I'm the only Ryan Narus I believe in the world. It's Narus, N like Nancy. You Google that and LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn is right there. You can drop me a line there. My website should be like the second thing that comes up on Google. You can email me directly from my website right there, archimedesgrp.com. Come find me. I would love to talk to you. And I don't care if you are worth $1 billion or worth negative $1 billion or anywhere in between. I don't care who you are. I would love to help you, and I don't need a thing in return.
Awesome. Well, there you heard it, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to get in contact with Ryan, I'm actually going to put his LinkedIn URL in the show notes, so you can go there, click through, or you can just Google Ryan Narus, Narus in LinkedIn search, and you'll be able to find him there. So again, Ryan, thank you very much for jumping on the show today. I really appreciated it, and I know everybody else did as well. For everybody that's here with us today, thank you guys for joining, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investing Club. If you've watched this far, I'm sure you've gotten a little bit of value out of this. So we would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up, share it with your friends or family, whatever it may be. And if you'd like to share or partner with us on a deal, we absolutely love partnering on deals and are always looking for quality projects. go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to get in contact with one of our partners. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.